Hi, today I'm with Aunty Heather Kennedy and I'm going to be talking a little bit about culture. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I was actually born here in Melbourne. My family originally from Tasmania. My father's from Williams-Tchen, but we are Palawa people. We're saltwater people. We're Girraway, Ben Lomond and Plemenier. Through the Briggs side, through the Tasmanian side, we're Boonwurrung people. Through my great-great-great-great-grandmother, Dolly Dalrymple Briggs. We didn't know about our Aboriginality, which was not our fault, and my aunties and uncles knew, but it was never talked about because being from Tasmania, it was very, under the carpet, you didn't talk about it. And my grandparents were, when I was about 15 or 16, were presented with their Briggs genealogy, which was done by a professor in Tasmania, but it wasn't done so much because of them being Aboriginal. It was done because there were so many different people from different families dying of specific diseases, which are right through my family, and I have the same thing as well. And so that's how it came about. And then it was presented to my grandparents, and then it was all, like out in the open. But when you're 15 and you're a young girl, you're not worried about stuff like that. And it was when I got older that I started to realise, because I'm the fairest one in the family and always considered the black sheep of the family, non-conformist, and I kind of thought, you know what, I don't feel like I really fit in anywhere. Something's not right, something's missing. And then when my dad was very sick and dying, I had promised myself that I needed to go and meet with family, with elders, and learn as much as I could, because my father didn't have that opportunity. And so that's really when I felt that I was of age to and mature enough to do all these things and have an understanding of our family and family history, especially being Tasmanian and learning about the invasion of Tasmania and the atrocities that happened to our people. And it just kind of went from there. And then I went and stayed with family, stayed with elders, and learned as much as I possibly could and kept coming back. And I was very fortunate that an old auntie and a few cousins had got together and decided that a gift for me when I was leaving to come back to Melbourne, to the mainland, was to give me a gift. And I was like, being brought up to be respectful of my elders, you shouldn't have done that. And they said, no, it's not a physical gift that you can take. And I was like, okay. And they said, the elders have got together, they've all been watching you. And I'm like, how have they been watching me, Mind you, I was quite young then and very naive and very shy. And they said, no, they've given you your language name. And I was like, oh, okay. So they told me what it was, which is me Tavernier. And I said, what does that mean? And they went, little black possum. And I was kind of like, I'm not a little black possum. But as I got older, I started to realise why they gave me the name, because they had explained, they've been watching you. You're like this little possum that just sits up in the tree and just watches everything and takes it all in. And at that time, that didn't really mean much to me. And I was still finding my way. But as I've gotten older, I start to realise, yes, they're right. Because I will sit and watch and take in and will say something respectfully, but then leave it at that. And so that's meant a lot to me to have that. And I'm the only member of my family that does have a language name.
So how has history actually impacted on you and your family?
I would say in the sense of the many times the non-acceptance of Tasmanian Aboriginal people because we're fair. And that's not just out there in your mainstream, that's also in your own Aboriginal communities who unfortunately these days judge people on their colour rather than who their mob are and who they are. And that has been quite stressful for me at times, where I've just gone, you know, who gives this person the right to question who you are when you know who you are? And it's not like you're doing it for monetary gain or anything. You're doing it because that is your birthright, as it was your parents' birthright and your grandparents' birthright. And because of the history of Tasmania, and this is what I say to people, before you judge us, please learn our history of what happened to our people, to our ancestors. And once you understand that, you will understand where we're coming from. And it's very sad, because I have found over the years that in this generation, it's becoming even more that, that whiteness seems to be a thing. And it should not be that. It should not be about the colour of your skin. It should be about who you are, who your family are, who your mob are, and the fact that you're proud to identify as being an Aboriginal person, no matter what colour your skin is. And it's a little saying I have, is that if you have a cup of black coffee and you put milk in it, it's still coffee, isn't it? What's the difference? Just the colour.
Can you share an experience or a time in your life where people haven't accepted you, and how did that make you feel, and what did you do to overcome that?
Well, there's been many situations. Not a specific one, but me being an extremely independent person who's virtually looked after myself from the age of 13 and never relied on anyone for anything. I could have walked away and gone, you know, if this is what Aboriginal is about, I don't want to know. But I was the other way, whereas I was like, no, this is my birthright, as it was my father's. And I just dug my heels in even more, because I thought, if I walk away, you're achieving exactly what you want. But I'm staying here and I'm standing my ground, and I know who I am, and I have every right to do this. And it's actually made me a much stronger person within myself. And like I said, people have the issue, not me.
What do you think are some of the issues that Aboriginal people are facing?
There are so many issues these days that in the 80s and 90s and say early 2000s, I felt that we were getting somewhere, that the government was listening, the government was doing everything to help communities and help Aboriginal people. Unfortunately, and I'm going to get political here, when we got the likes of Howard and Abbott and the last Prime Minister and this one that's in now, they don't give a damn about Aboriginal people. They don't give a damn about housing, health, education, mental health. Mental health is a huge issue. It's an issue across the board everywhere, not just with Aboriginal people, but with all. And pulling so much funding is just, it's not helping. We've got young ones, we've got what I call the lost generation. And that's not all, but certainly a good percentage are on ice. We have a new issue with children being removed from families. And I don't call it stolen gen, because these children are being removed because they are in situations that they're at risk. And these children are being placed with non-Aboriginal families. We don't have enough Aboriginal families to look after them. And yet we've got something like 90% of our young children are being removed. And so therefore we've got another generation. And then what happens with these young ones if they do manage to get off the drugs? Mentally, they're not right. What are they going to pass on once we're gone? It's mental health is a huge, major issue. But we also have education is a huge issue. Housing is a huge issue. Drug and alcohol is a huge issue. It's just become, I think it's more prevalent now than it's ever been, and the government are just turning their back. It's kind of like, and we have the deaths in custody. That's all crept back in, and nothing is being done about it. And these are issues that we need to address. Then we have other things like treaty. How is that going to work? How is that going to help us? Is that going to help us, or is the government setting up yet another thing to fail? And then we become another statistic for the government, then they're pulling the strings, and as usual. I just see things have gone backwards, not forwards. And I'd like to see things go forward, because I worry about my grandchildren. I worry about their future and their children's future. Then we have the issues with climate change. We have the issues with the Murray-Darling. We have all these issues that government are not listening to Aboriginal people. It's all become so power, money orientated these days. And so if you've got the money, you've got the power, and the little people don't exist. And I'm finding everything just so tokenistic.
What are some stereotypes about Aboriginal people that you would like to break?
The main one is that people have this thing that all Aboriginal people are dole bludgers, they're drunks, they're dirty, and they're women bashers and child molesters. And that's not the case. That is across the board everywhere, no matter who you are or where you're from. And I always say to people, and when I'm talking with kids and that, I'll say, if you see a white fella or non-Aboriginal person in the park drunk or down the street drunk, how do you react? You just look and go, look at them, and then you keep walking. But when you see a black fella drunk, oh, look at that, isn't that disgusting? They're all drunks, they're all this, they're all that. But keeping in mind, you don't know that person's history. You don't know their pain. You don't know their hurt. You don't know their story. So don't judge them, because everyone has a story and everyone has a reason. But we have people out there who are doctors, who are lawyers, who are barristers, who are health workers, who are doing so many wonderful things in community, but unfortunately it's not out there in the media. The only thing the media reports are all the bad things, not the good things. And I would like to see that disappear. And the only way that's going to disappear is that we need, for our true history, Australian history, the bloody history, to be taught, that it is a compulsory history subject within primary, secondary and tertiary schools. And once this is done and it is taught, it is written by Aboriginal people, preferably by elders that can tell those stories or give permission for someone else to tell those stories. Once we start doing that and the true history is there, then maybe we can slowly get rid of the stereotyping, the categorisation of Aboriginal people, and maybe the racism, which has crept in so badly now. It never used to be as bad as what it is now.
What advice would you give non-Indigenous people who would like to know more about Aboriginal culture? Where should they start looking, or what should they be doing?
I think go to your local community organisations, maybe ask to do some voluntary work within organisations. Doesn't matter where. That's where you'll get that experience of working in community. But most of all, go in because that's really what you want to do, and not be tokenistic about like, oh, I'm doing this in community, so I know everything about Aboriginal people. It's like someone who says, a lot of people say this, oh, I've been to Alice Springs, so I know about Aboriginal people. Excuse me, we come from everywhere. We're not just Alice Springs people. So go to your local community organisations. Get involved. You don't have to be there 24/7. But put your hand up if you seriously want to know about things. That's how to do it. The other things, go work in communities. Go to remote communities. Go live in community. Do voluntary work in community. That's how you will learn.
What attributes or skills do you think an Aboriginal elder should have?
I think I have elders whom I look up to, and I see them as my mentors, that I can talk to if I have a problem or if I'm not sure about something, or they can guide me in what direction if I do something wrong, they'll certainly tell me. And I would like to, how I see an elder is someone who is, you don't just appoint yourself as an elder. It is a role that you earn. It is a role that is given to you because you are the most suitable person that people can go to and trust and mentor, but also to tell stories to tell history to.
If you had a chance to be able to change things, where could we start?
Education. I will keep pushing this. The true Australian history needs to be told. And once that's told, once that is a mandatory, compulsory component of subjects within primary, secondary and tertiary school, then people will have a better understanding as to what has gone on, rather than what they're taught is that Captain Cook discovered Australia. Yeah, so what? We were here. Our people were here. People don't know about Terranalias. They don't know about the fact that we came under the Flora and Fauna Act before the 1967 referendum. They don't know any of these things. They don't know about missions. They don't know about assimilation. They don't know about stolen gem. These are all things that are really, really important to be told. Once that is told, it becomes a part of history. It's not a nice part of history, but it's the truth of history. Then maybe there might be a little bit more understanding. And maybe, just maybe, I live in hope that we will live in a better country, a more harmonious country and a more accepting country, because you know what? Under the UN, Australia is the most racist country in the world, and that's nothing to be proud of. So I would like to see changes there. I would just like to see people accept people as who they are, not about the colour of their skin, but also respect that it is our country, it is our land. We are not the owners of the land. Nobody owns the land. We are the caretakers. We do not take the land with us, we go back into the land. So people need to understand we're the caretakers of this land. You know, my passion is for people, not just young people, but for Aboriginal people to don't be gummers, be doers. And get an education. Get out there and do something with your life. Don't sit back going, oh, poor me, poor me, poor me, because that's not going to get you anywhere. Be achievers, be leaders. Don't be followers. Followers go nowhere.
So from your story, what is one thing you'd like people to walk away with?
I will always say this: don't judge. Don't assume and don't judge. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story is different, and everybody's story impacts on them in a different way. So don't judge.
So I want to thank Aunty Heather for talking to us today about culture and her experiences. Thanks, Aunty Heather.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We